This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 108 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's episode is all about exploring nature in Australia. So obviously I'm Australian and I do kind of love my country. It's a big, vast, empty place, but that means we've got nature everywhere. We are definitely not a crowded place. We have an extremely low population density. Nearly all of us, I don't know the percentage anymore, somewhere like 80% or more of us live on the coast in coastal cities. And even there, if you drive along the coast, particularly in my state, in the north of Western Australia, you can still drive for hundreds of kilometres and not see anything. Well, that's not true. You won't see any people or buildings, but you will see amazing nature. And over the past year or so, I've chatted to quite a few people about Australia. And when I went back to look at the people that I chatted to about Australia, I just kind of had a note that they'd talked about Australia. But when I listened back, all of the kind of the exciting conversations that we'd had, the really telling ones, they were all about Australian nature. Because I guess that's what makes us particularly unique. We're this big, empty place. Why are we big and empty? I guess one reason is our climate kind of makes it that way because much of the big and empty space is desert. And on top of that, we're kind of far from pretty much everywhere in the world. We here in Perth, we like to say we're the most isolated city in the world. I did read an argument against that recently that was claiming that Honolulu is the most isolated city in the world. But I really feel like if I was in Honolulu, I'd feel like I was quite close to the States and quite close to Asia and Europe. But down here in Perth, we're kind of far from everywhere. Anyway, be that as it may, my guests today are all talking about some aspect of Australian nature. Now, I've been pretty lucky so far. I've managed to explore quite a lot of it. When I was a kid, I think I was 12, my family and I went on a 2-month camper vanning trip. We went right across Australia, across the Nullarbor Plain and up the east coast and back. We didn't go around the top way. Back at that time, it would have been wet season. Plus, a lot of that road wasn't bitumenized or asphalted back in those days. We're talking like 1988. These days, it's a bit easier. But back then, that's the way we did it. So I got to see a lot of empty Australia there, travelling across the Nullarbor. But as an adult, I've also got to see, for example, the South Australian outback, out to Wilpena Pound, and it's just a beautiful area out there. I've managed to get to Tasmania 3 times, even though it's quite far from Perth. I just love Tasmania and it's full of nature. One of our guests today chats about that. And I've also been out to Uluru, you might know it as Ayers Rock, and to Kings Canyon near there. And that, amazing red desert. It's indescribable. You have to go and see it for yourself. And I still have so much more of Australia to see. It's really a really special place. And that's why I decided to devote this whole episode to it. So let's get on to hearing from one of my guests instead of just hearing me waxing lyrical about Australia. Now, my first guest is Kati Craythorn. So she grew up in Germany, but now calls Australia home. And obviously, Australia is quite different to Germany, but she has definitely grown to love it. And I asked her about some of the most beautiful places that she knows in Australia.
Honestly, the Northern Territory is amazing.
Oh, I know.
I did not expect it.
Oh,
I thought it would be a great holiday, but once we got to the desert, I thought, it's going to be desert. Desert. What do you expect to see there? Then desert. Yeah. But it's so hilly. There are mountain ranges there. It was just incredibly green, and everybody there said, "Oh, it's so not green." And I'm like, "Have you been to Victoria in the summer? This is green here."
Yes, exactly. Because it's towards tropical, isn't it? So it's going to be different.
And walking around Uluru was just, I wasn't quite sure whether I'd appreciate it or not, just because it's essentially a big rock in the middle, and yes, it has spiritual significance for the traditional owners, but would it have any of that for me, or what would I think of that? And I found that really special, actually. Walking, what is it, 12, 10, I think it's 11 Ks around the base of Uluru.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
And the rock is incredibly interesting. It's not just a rock, but it's it's got nooks and caves and rock art and waterfalls. I mean, obviously there weren't any when we were there, but you could see the watermarks, and it's really amazing. And they've got lots of signage about the significance and, look at this here and look at that there. And that was
excellent.
Really special.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I've only been to Uluru once, but it's about, it's like 20 years ago now, so it's probably different.
It's probably changed a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to go back. Like, I didn't do a walk all the way around, just there was like a part way. And there was a lot of people climbing it, but that I didn't. I'd love to go back, and I'd love to take my son, because I think he'd really be really impressed by it.
Yeah. The one thing that I found weird was you could bike around it, rent a bike, you could walk, and then you can hire a Segway. And
really?
People on a Segway, and it's just somehow in my head I'm just like, this is just wrong. You're on this Segway thing. You look stupid.
You would. That's for a city.
People look stupid on a Segway.
I mean, they're weird to start with, but like maybe in a city, okay, but not out there. How bizarre.
I know, and it just looks wrong. You see the sort of technology, and then you're next to this ancient rock, and you're like, somehow the two things don't match up.
That doesn't match up to me either. So have they got like an asphalt path around, or a paved path or something?
No, it's sort of a compacted path. It's quite wide.
Oh, so it still looks natural enough then. Okay.
It still looks quite natural.
I'm just picturing these segways on. I was like, oh wow.
No, but these segways, it does look a bit weird. You're just like, okay, I know you don't want to walk around and you want to get around it quick, but
a bike would be fine then.
Get on a bike.
Yeah. I accept that for some people the walk might be too far, etc.
Yeah.
But a bike I can live with, because it's human powered. That's okay. Yep. But no. Yep. Oh, that's disturbing. I'm not happy to hear that.
No, and I just found that so weird, and I'm like, am I sort of old fashioned, or
Well, I don't know. If you are, so am I.
It's the technology or something that you're just standing on that thing and it pushes you around, and you're just like, okay, I just don't get that at all.
Yeah, in such a beautiful, iconic, very natural place. Like, it's all about nature out there, so it doesn't seem right to bring in, that's super weird. I am never going on a Segway tour of Uluru, I promise you right now. And did you see much of Kakadu and stuff as well?
We did. We had about 3 days, or 2.5 by the time you arrive in Kakadu, and I loved it. I thought I wasn't sure what to expect. The taxi driver in Darwin said to us, he took us to our hotel. He said, "Oh, why are you going to Kakadu? It's just trees." And I'm like, okay, well.
What a great ambassador for his territory.
I know. He's like, don't go there, go to Litchfield. And we didn't make it to Litchfield. He's like, you can't even swim. It's just trees. And it's true. There are a lot of trees in Kakadu. It's very, very green, but it's beautiful. I love the floodplains. There's so much Aboriginal rock art, the history there. Fabulous. It's just incredible. There's so many walks. There's so many hikes there. I couldn't believe it if I'd known it. I probably would have wanted to spend a whole week there. I really want to go back and take a four-wheel drive and just camp there and just go off-road a bit, and because we kind of stayed on the main sort of tourist part.
Yeah, sure.
Part. Yeah. It wasn't that busy, so I never felt like, oh, my gosh, the masses here would, are too much for me, because I get really allergic when there are too many people.
Me too.
So Kakadu was great. Saw a lot of crocodiles, which don't excite me in the slightest.
Nope. I do not want to see the crocodiles, thank you.
I see them and I go, yeah, it's a crocodile. It's okay. It's dangerous. I know. I don't want to get close to it.
No, exactly.
I'll take some photos of you, but, you're just really boring. You're just lying there.
And they're pretty ugly, aren't they?
No. So, that was okay. But we did they have a cruise on the Yellowwater Billabong there.
Okay.
And you can do it at sunrise, and it's just beautiful. I really loved it.
Gorgeous.
If you ever go to Kakadu, everybody does it, but they have so many boats and they take them onto different arms of the Billabong, and so you don't feel like, you're hemmed in by 50 boats or something.
Right, yeah.
So it still feels quite, you're sort of on your own with, I think, 30, 40 other people. And that was just beautiful. The bird life there is incredible. If you're into birds, you probably want to live in Kakadu, I would imagine.
The Northern Territory is definitely a fascinating part of Australia. And as I mentioned, I've only made it to Uluru and Kings Canyon, so I've got so much left there to explore. I've never even been to Darwin, the capital of the Northern Territory. So someday soon I will explore more of that amazing place. Now, my next guest today is Michela Fantinel, who is Italian but has a very long love affair with Australia. I've met her a couple of times during her trips out here. She even makes it to Perth quite regularly, although she is still based in Italy. So I did ask her about what she loves about Australia.
Well, it's a long story, really long story. Now it's 14 years. Yes, 14 years. I started in 2004 and I was in a gap year because I was in between jobs, so to say. And I was moving back from Germany to Italy and I was taking this backpacking trip and it was amazing. So it was when I was turning 40 and I was, for me that between 39 and 40 was the year when I had a bit of a crisis, life crisis. Middle, I don't know what it was because it's very different for everyone. Someone have it even earlier or even later, but it was that year where I had. And for me, Australia, that backpacking trip was something, the trip of a lifetime. I've been preparing that trip for years, but I could never do it because I didn't want it to go for a short trip. I wanted to go for months. So I was waiting to be in between jobs. And while I was moving back to Italy, I had this time to do it. And then it really opened a new world for me. I thought, this is a country, because in 2 months, obviously, I went to the Great Ocean Road, I went to the Uluru, I went to Cairns, but I just saw a little bit of Australia in 2 months. You cannot really do much.
No, it's a very big place, yeah.
It's a big place. And I said, oh my God, the whole life, it's not enough to see it all.
That's
so I could go back 4 years later, 2008, and then it was when I was in another gap year again. And then after that, 2011, 12, no, I didn't go in 12, then 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, every year. And whenever I come for 2 to 5 months. Once I stayed 5 months on a one go. Well, not on a one go. I had to leave and go to Bali because
a visa run
was out.
Yeah.
And was going in between the clouds, the clouds, the famous, the volcano there in Indonesia. Yeah, I was so lucky to have my flight in between the clouds, I said, because it was the smoky clouds. But for me, Australia is really a big country that gave me so much. It gave me so much. And some people say, what do you like of Australia? Because, coming from Europe, which is a country where everything is here, you have culture, you have also nature, beautiful mountains and whatever. It's the old continent. They say, oh, you have everything here. You don't really need to go to Australia. But it's a completely different country and also different environment, a different way of travel. It's the country that I promote. Even I like Europe too, but it's a different way of traveling. And it has given me that particular way of travel that I cannot have in Europe. And it's very much experiencing the country by yourself. You can do it, you have the impression that you really do it, whereas in Europe, everything is there. There is a train taking you there. Everything is very much well planned or whatever. You really have, if you want to do something adventurous, you have to go, I don't know, to isolated places, or you have to go to the mountains. But apart from that, we don't have these big open spaces and these countries that really fills your heart and your soul. And it really. And it gives you also, it makes you understand that nature is more important than even yourself, that you are really a tiny guest on this world, and that nature is really what the earth is all about, and the planet, and how we can do something to preserve it and to travel more responsibly and mindfully, and it's a country where I could learn a lot, and that's why that from different angles it really gave me a lot. Also, as a solo traveler, I could do so much. I was at the beginning like backpacking, and then I moved on to different stages of solo travels. Like, at the beginning, I couldn't think of traveling by car. I said, oh, no, I'm not going to drive, left-hand drive. And then in Australia,
true, yes.
And I was terrified. And then I just started with a friend. I said, okay, we go for a few weeks together. And we went to the Great Ocean Road, to the Uluru ones together.
Beautiful.
And then I said, it's so easy. I'm sure I can do it by myself too.
Oh, of course you could.
Yeah. Something like a boost, confidence. And then just after that, I think I've had over 10 road trips on my own. I started with small ones, like 300 Ks around Melbourne or York Peninsula in Cairns. And then I was just going for longer ones. And it was really, really beautiful. I did the last one in Tasmania last year. And then I did a long one from Perth down to Albany and then back through the coastal.
I have to admit, I giggled to myself when Michela explained that it was the year between her 39th and 40th birthday that she had a bit of a midlife crisis and came out and discovered Australia, because the reason I laughed, because one of the results of my 39 to 40-year-old midlife crisis, which I think is pretty common when 40's coming, a lot of people think, oh my goodness, it seems kind of like, I don't know, it's a momentous occasion. And so one of the results of my little crisis there was this very podcast. If you are a long-time listener, you might remember that I launched the first episodes of the Thoughtful Travel podcast on my 40th birthday. So there you go. Michela discovered Australia and I discovered podcasting. I thought that was fun. Now, my final guest today is Leah Smileski. Now, I didn't know this until we chatted, that she actually grew up in her younger years in Tasmania, which is a very beautiful part of Australia. And we had a chat about that because it's one of the most beautiful parts of Australia, according to her. Well, according to me and lots of people too. But here's my chat with Leah.
I might say Tasmania, but I am also going to say Hanging Rock in Victoria, so I can talk about both of those places.
Yes, I want to hear about both of them. So, I mean, Tasmania I've been to several times and adore, and it is full of amazing, natural experiences and landscapes that are incredible. So,
Tasmania's a marvel, like a natural marvel. Like everywhere you go, you're going to come across something, either a native animal or just a breathtaking view that will stop you in your tracks. Even your children will stop in your tracks because, especially if they're city kids, they won't have seen anything like it. I think one of the things I was unprepared for when we went to Tasmania on our last trip. Now, I'm originally from Tasmania but left when I was very young.
Right.
My parents took us all the way up to Darwin, so it was a bit of culture shock.
Yeah.
Going through in terms of not just the people but also the changing climate.
Yes.
But because I left so long, I've only had short trips back to Tasmania.
Right, okay.
And at the start of the year, we had this idea of taking our kids through a journey in their family heritage. And so we went to Tasmania.
Right.
And what I wasn't prepared for was the animals and the amount of native animals, especially in the northwestern parts of Tasmania, how abundant the wildlife is.
Yes.
And how you need to be prepared for that in a car. True, and also where you're staying, because you will hear noises at night that aren't noises that you've probably heard before. So we had Tasmanian devils screaming and screeching outside.
They sound
our
awful,
windows.
don't they? Yeah.
Well, they've got that name for a reason.
Yeah,
they really do sound like something from a horror movie, which we had told the kids about and prepared them, and they had seen Tasmanian devils and heard them before. So it wasn't as scary as it could have been, I guess, had we not known what they were. I can only imagine.
Oh, yes, if you totally didn't know and you just landed there and heard that at night, in the middle of the night or something, that would be pretty horrifying.
And we're in a little cottage. We found this little cottage that we had rented for a few days in the middle of nowhere in the bush. And so, yes, it would be terrifying. All those, movies that you see, it would come flooding back. But
yes, they would.
The abundance of wildlife in Tasmania, though, you can go and see things, different animals that, you don't even have to seek them out. You're just going to come across them.
That's right. I remember seeing wombats around and stuff, and like I've never seen wombats anywhere just ambling along, and yet in Tassie, there's a wombat just crossing the car park. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, just in the car park, looking for some food, and off he goes. Yeah. Yes, and the little penguins. I think that's what I was surprised at.
Yes.
That you can go and see little penguins without the crowd of people.
Yes.
So if anybody see little penguins as one of their top bucket list items and they don't care where they go to see them, I'd recommend heading to Tasmania, because you can see them without 100 other people. You'll probably see them within a group of 30, but you'll break off into a group of 5 and they'll come right up to you and they'll knock around your feet. You're still, but the little penguins will come and walk around you as if you're a tree on their way to their burrows. And you can hear the males sing their love songs, which isn't particularly sweet. They don't sound like canaries. It's more of a squawk.
It's not so romantic.
Not for, I'm sure the females think it is.
I guess
but
so.
The female penguins, just not us.
So. Yes, true.
Go during summer and you'll see baby chicks, and you'll see quite a number of them, and they're all protected, and you have the people in that area looking after them to make sure, there's no foxes or wild dogs or what have you. So
yes, of course.
I don't think you have that anywhere else in Australia in the same way.
Yes, we were lucky. It must have been 2 years ago. My mum's best friend was renting a house in Lowhead. Am I right? And we literally walked to see the penguins at night. And I was astounded that we went to stay with her for a couple of weeks, and then she said, "Oh yeah, there's penguins here. Just come down," and there was a smallish crowd, but and I couldn't believe what an amazing experience it was. It was basically on her doorstep. So,
and at Lowhead they allow you to take photos without a flash. So
yes.
I don't think there's anywhere else you can do that. Even if you go around to the east coast of Tasmania, there's no photos. So Lowhead is the key place to go.
Wow. Oh, see, well, I went completely by accident, so there you go.
Well, that's the best way to see nature a lot of the time, isn't it? By accident.
That's very
true. You just
true.
come across it without realising, and then it's like, oh, wow, never knew this was here.
Absolutely.
Cradle Mountain. Did you go to Cradle Mountain?
I have been to Cradle Mountain. It's amazing. And the lake.
It took me 3 goes to see Cradle Mountain without clouds covering it, or without rain, or without snow.
Oh, no. Wow.
I'm so happy that I tried because it's worth it.
Yeah, it's
so a magical place.
Yeah, yes. Oh, I mean, I could go back to Tassie again and again and again. I just think all of it is such a magical place. On the East Coast, places like the tessellated pavement and stuff, I always remember it. Like I saw it on my very first trip there, which is probably 15 or more, probably closer to 20 years ago. And I always thought, oh, it looks like a block of chocolate. And, these like amazing rock formations that are, it does. So, just stuff like that. There's like things like that around every corner there that you just can't believe. Especially for Australia, we're used to massive distances. And then here we are, we've got this relatively small island, and around every corner is this amazing new kind of natural feature, or like you say, new animals or wildlife, and it's so beautiful.
And you probably wouldn't see any of that anywhere else in Australia. The tessellated pavement, I don't know if we have anything else like that.
I've never come across it, no. That seems really unique to me, yeah.
The Bay of Fires with the Bay of Fires with the red rocks in the ocean, with it up at the top, the northeastern part of
That's
it.
That's right.
Freycinet, that was incredible. Just the water, it almost rivals the turquoise waters of the Whitsundays, I think, until you step into the water, and then it doesn't.
And it's a bit chilly.
Cold. It's a little bit chilly, even in the height of summer.
Yeah, you remember you're actually quite close to Antarctica compared to Queensland. Yeah.
I think we went there when it was 30 odd degrees, and the kids put sunscreen all over them, put them in the swimmers, and we'd been for a big walk and said, in you go, isn't it beautiful? Looks stunning. And I don't think they lasted more than 15 minutes because it was just so cold.
Yes. Now, you might remember that Leah also mentioned Hanging Rock at the very beginning of our chat, which is a spot not far away from Melbourne. We did go on to have a chat about that. It was the inspiration for that. It's a really classic Australian book called Picnic at Hanging Rock, and a movie as well. And I've never been there, but of course to me it's famous just because of the book and the movie. And Leah said it's fascinating for the same reason. If you don't know it, it's a story about some girls who go on a picnic at Hanging Rock and get lost. But Leah said she used to go out there with her friends and try to get lost, but it seemed impossible to get lost, which just makes that whole story even more intriguing, I think. Anyway, that is it for our beautiful tales of the gorgeous nature of Australia. I hope we've inspired you to get out there and see some of it. I know we have a lot of Aussie listeners, so I'd be very keen to hear what parts of Australia you think are the most beautiful natural parts of our country. And I hope for everyone abroad that we've inspired you to come down and visit us here. So thank you for listening to episode 108 of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. You can find lots of information about this episode at the show notes at notaballerina.com/108 for this episode. You can also find these links, first of all, to Kati's blog, Queensland and Beyond, which is at queenslandandbeyond.com. And there's lots of Australian nature in that blog. It's beautiful. Lots of really gorgeous photos, particularly. And secondly, I chatted with Michela from Rocky Travel. You can find her at rockytravel.net. She's been setting up some tours, including some that will be coming out of Australia later, next year, I think. Anyway, check out rockytravel.net for any information from Michela. And finally, I chatted with Leah from Kid Bucket List. So if you're looking for some family travel ideas in Australia, that is definitely a good place to go. She's at kidbucketlist.com.au. Don't forget to come and join our Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers. Just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook or hit the link in the show notes. Thank you very, very much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.